we're going to be talking about the listing presentation and working with sellers in social distancing. So a lot of the stuff that we have out there with listings and listing presentations is going to be pretty similar to what a lot of us are already doing. But some of the changes that we're going to be making are really on meeting face to face because it's going to be a little bit more difficult that way. So what I figured I would do is kind of start from the beginning with what I do with working with listings, and then make some adjustments along the way to share with you guys on some best practices on working with people um, remotely. So there's a lot of different ways that people go about getting listings. I know some folks are doing for sale by owners, expireds, working your sphere, referrals, a lot of different things. But really what I like to focus on up front is getting enough information from the people before even taking the first step. So what I want to do is first focus on the pre-listing interview. So if they're calling me to list their property or I'm reaching out to them and we're discussing things, what I want to do is start to ask some just general level, like general questions. Typically I start off the conversation by building rapport and asking them forward questions. And then I start to go in and I explain the process a little bit. So I'll start with asking them the property address, obviously. So I'll ask them the property address and say, okay, and is that the same address where you receive mail? And if that's different, then I would go ahead and notate that as well. And it also helps me understand if they're living in that property or not. And then I'll also ask them about any of the owners or decision makers, because there may be a time where there are owners who won't be present, or it could be that somebody doesn't own the property with their spouse, but they're still a decision maker. So it could be that, you know, a lot of different scenarios that could come up. And then, of course, I want to go through and make sure that I have their phone number. Obviously, the number that I'm calling you on, is that the best cell phone number to reach you at? And then repeat it back, then make sure you have it right. And then also asking them on their email address, because you are going to be emailing them information. So typically I just ask, well, hey, which email address do you check the most often? And go ahead and do that, because if you're like me, you probably have multiple email addresses, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting the one that they check the most often. And then, of course, moving on to ask them about why they're selling and finding that out, because that's really going to be important when going back to their motivation to figure out what's going on. And you're definitely going to need that, because as you're going through the listing process, you'll see that motivation come up over and over again. So for this example, we can just use that they're selling because they want to move to Iowa, Louisiana to be closer to their family. So like, okay, cool, that works. So when do you need to be there by? And they'll have their time frame and say, hey, you know, we'd really like to be there as soon as possible, but really we do have some time. I would say probably about 3 months is our goal to be there. I'm like, great. So your property that you guys have over on 1624 Constantinople, could you describe that house a little bit for me? And they'll go into detail about all the different things. And of course, you can always look up the bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, all that general stuff, but you really want to get some of the information from them and start to understand more about the property from their perspective. From there, then you'd ask, okay, well, so how long did you own this property? And when you bought this, what originally sold you on this home? Or you can also ask, you know, what features did you like about it? Get some more information from them about it and say, okay, so have you done any updating to the home since you bought it? And also ask when they did those updating, because they might say, oh yeah, we completely did a full gut renovation, and that was probably about 15 years ago. So if it was that long ago, you might need to do some changes. Or it might be that they've done a little bit to the kitchen, and then a little bit later they did something to the bathrooms, and then a little bit later did this. And then I could move on and I say, okay, well, let me ask you this. I know you're selling because you want to be closer to your family, but If you were to stay in your home for another 5 years, is there anything you would do to it? And this kind of gives you an idea of where some of their downsides of the property might be, so you'll know ahead of time. And then I ask, well, for a moment, pretend to be a buyer and look at your property from the buyer's eyes. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very bad condition, like a gut check, we'll call it, and 10 being a perfect, pristine model home, how would you rank your property? And usually they might say, oh, well, about a 9, or an 8, and we're also going to be doing this, and just asking different things. They'll say, okay, so you say about an 8. What do you feel that you would do to that property to make it a 10? And asking what they would be changing about it. And then I ask them, well, okay, so what are you going to be asking for the property? And typically people, their external dialogue might say, well, I don't really know. I guess we were going to ask you about that. Their internal dialogue typically is they know about the market. They have an idea of what they think it's going to be worth. May or may not be worth that. But you don't want to start to get into any kind of CMAs or anything like that at this point. You just want to get an idea of where they are. And of course, then I'd move on and say, okay, do you own the property free and clear, or do you have a loan? A lot of times people might have a loan on the property, and it would be good to know that information, because that can kind of give you an idea of where they are on if the margins are going to be really slim or if they have a little bit of wiggle room. Once again, you don't want to get into that, but you want to make sure you have enough information going into it. And ask them if they've refinanced recently. If they've done a refinance, then I would go a little bit further and say, did they do an appraisal when you did that refinance? Okay, and do you remember about how much they had said it was worth when they did that refinance and how long ago it was? And also ask them if they know the approximate balance of their mortgage. The next thing that I like to ask them, this is a really important one, are what are 3 things that you're looking for in your next agent? And this is obviously going to tell you how to win, because they're going to tell you specifically what it is they're looking for in an agent. And of course, I'm going to ask if they're interviewing any other brokers for this job. And also, I want to know when. And I also want to make sure that I'm covering the question, have you considered going for sale by owner? They may say yes, they may say no. No matter what they say, that's it. You just want to know, so when you're on the listing presentation, that you'll be able to overcome that objection, but not now. Right now, you're just asking if they've ever considered it. You don't need to go in and say, well, according to the National Association of Realtors, there's actually a 14% chance of it. Doesn't matter. All you're doing is collecting information. And also asking if they've sold a property before. Because if they haven't sold a property before, they might not really know exactly what they're looking for. If they've done it in the past, then you can kind of ask them a little bit further and say, as you're going into the presentation, kind of learn a little bit more. So I would ask them, is there anything else I should know about your home? And they say, no. When we do our video presentation, we can discuss a little bit further. And I'll say, okay, well, to help me prepare for our meeting, do you have any questions for me? And they might come up with something like, well, yeah, we want to know how much your commission rate is. What are you going to charge us? And at that, once again, this is just kind of exploratory, so I'm not going to tell them up front. What I'm going to say is, okay, great. So you have a question about my success fee. And I'll make sure that when I bring all the information and we go through our presentation, I can cover that for you, okay? So here's what's going to happen next is I'm going to bring by a packet of information, and here's the part where we need to change it up a little bit, because typically what I would do is I actually have a pre-listing package that I bring by, and I'll drop it off at their front door, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to bother with them. I'm just going to drop it off. With now kind of social distancing, we can actually email that package if we need to. If you're fine with dropping it off and they're fine with dropping it off, then you can go ahead and print out all the information and bring it to them. But that's kind of up for you guys to decide with each individual owner. So if you are going to be emailing it to them, that's completely fine. And realizing that let me show you the listing packet that I'm going to be dropping off at their house. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you for a little bit. I'm going to show the entire screen because there's a lot of different things I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen, is that right? Okay. Yes, okay, Philip says yes. Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do first is, let me share with you guys an email that I wrote. So this would be if I'm emailing in the packet, not printing it out and dropping it off at their house. So I would start with, Joseph and Dee, thank you so much for the opportunity to help you and your children move to Iowa, Louisiana. I'm excited to be part of the journey and get you closer to your family. As I mentioned on the phone, attached is a link to some information I'd like to share with you. I've also included all the listing information for your review. Any questions you have, we can cover during our video meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. Again, thank you for your time, and I'm stoked to be meeting with you guys tomorrow. And as you'll see right here, I've included a link. This link is going to be the listing presentation that I would typically print out and actually bring to them, or you can actually do it online. Now, this listing presentation that I'm going to be showing you guys is one that actually came from KW Command. So in KW Command, if you go into the designs, you can actually choose this listing presentation, and there's a ton of different pages that you can add to it. And there's also a ton of different pages that you can remove from it. So in my pre-listing packet that I'm going to be sending to them, I want to make sure that in this presentation, I have basically like a brochure or resume about myself. And I'm also going to have some different market statistics, really general and kind of broad-based statistics. Maybe quarterly housing supply and demand for a general area, and quarterly housing supply and demand for Keller Williams, Realty New Orleans, just to kind of give them general information about us, and then some other statistics that you might feel are important. I'd also include things like my 21-point marketing plan, a sample brochure, different marketing collateral that I do, and additionally, any other things that you guys feel are important. So this is the listing presentation that I've exported as a PDF, and I uploaded it into a program called Issue. And what this does is it kind of makes it look like a online magazine. And you can see all the different information that they have in here. And of course, all this is completely editable. The photos that I've used in here are just iPhone photos. So you don't have to go too crazy with presenting their properties. And of course, I did a little synopsis right here. This is actually sorry, I'm getting a call. Let me go back to where I was now. One second, hang with me. That's what happens when you have too much open. So this is going to be the comparable properties, explaining the process. And again, all that information, you guys can decide what's going to be best for you to put in there. This is the program I was telling you guys about, is Issue. And what I'm also going to put in there is a full listing agreement. I'm going to fill out the entire listing agreement, yes, with my commission rate in there. What I'm going to leave blank is the start date, of course, the signatures, and the price. I'm going to leave that information blank. Any other information about the property that I can fill out, I'm going to put in that listing agreement and assume that I've already got it. And I'm also going to put in there a seller's disclosure, any additional addendums that they're going to have to complete anyway. So like a lead-based paint disclosure or an agency disclosure, the act of God, force majeure addendum, any of those things, I'm going to make sure that I include in this pre-listing packet. And I'm also going to provide them a blank purchase agreement. So the blank purchase agreement gives them an idea of what a purchase agreement looks like, so they have an idea beforehand. So when they get an offer, it's not the first time that they're seeing that purchase agreement. And if it is possible, I do kind of a generalized net sheet. I'm not going to go ahead and fill everything out, but I have them a seller net sheet that they can use. So as we're going through, they can kind of calculate some of the things by themselves based upon whichever offer they get or whatever they decide they're going to need. So I'm going to put all of that information together, and you can do it as have a link for the presentation, and then you can have a PDF for all the other information, or you can put it all together in one, or you can put it however you want, but I'm sending all of that over to them at one time. Now, typically, like I said, I would print all that out, have it bound together and look really nice, and drop it off at the doorstep. And then I would leave and send them a text, hey, I just dropped it off at the front door, so they can go and get it whenever they like. You can still do that if you like, or you can email it to them, whatever works best for you. Are there any questions on the pre-listing information, pre-listing questionnaire, pre-listing packet, anything? Cool. Well, then I'm going to keep rocking on. So what I like to do is after, usually I'll drop that off or email it to them, and then the next day or somewhere around there is when I'm going to want to meet with them one-on-one. Typically, that's when I would actually meet them at the property and walk through it. Now that we're social distancing, my listing appointment is going to be virtual. If the property is vacant, then you can just go there and check it out yourself. If it's not vacant and they're living in it, then what you're going to want to do is set up a meeting like this. Google Meets are free to everybody in Keller Williams. It's part of the Google package that we have. And it's actually super simple to do. You just need their email address, which you've already got. And you go in there, and your calendar, the way that I do it is I just start a new calendar event, and I'll type it out. And when you click on, sorry, let me look at it right now. There's an area where you can click to add conferencing. When you click that button, it will automatically create a link. Oh, and Philip says, I've already used it for a client. Great, good job, Philip. When you click on that, it'll create a link. And that link, as you guys see, because you're on here right now, it's super simple just to click. And what you're going to want to do is talk to them about their property. And hold on. Somebody's blowing up my cell phone because they can't get into the meeting. Let me copy this link for them. And there we go. So when you see the next person join, you can figure out who wasn't able to get in. So what I want to do first is when I start the video conference with them, obviously be casual, kind of talk to them a little bit. And that's where you're going to start the property walkthrough. So when you're going through the property walkthrough, I typically like to start on the outside of the house, and they can have, I would suggest they do it on their phone because it can be a lot easier for you. So they can walk around with their phone and then just kind of talk about the property. And of course, they'll go inside and talk about it a little bit more. And as they're walking through, if there's things that, you know, if they're showing you different stuff, and you notice that there's something on the wall, or old carpeting or something like that. If you see something, you can say, "Hey, I noticed if you go back on that wall over there, what are your thoughts about that?" And so that's when I'll have them kind of go through it. They say, "Oh, well, a couple years ago there was a leak. We've had it all fixed." And I would say, "Okay." Um, and they might say, "Hey, we are thinking about painting that over." So I'm not going to try to point out anything bad. Anything that I notice, I'm just going to say, "Hey, I noticed this. What are your thoughts on that?" And then just kind of ask them a little bit about it. And during the property walkthrough, I'm going to ask them different questions as well, and say, "So how many properties have you sold before?" And this will give me an idea of if this is their first one, or if they've done this in the past and they have some experience. When I asked them about that, I could say, "Well, so when did you sell your last one? And if you don't mind, can I ask, what were your experiences with that sale? How did it go for you?" And once again, I'm learning more and more about them and what's going to help them through the process. Um, and what would you like to do the same or different on this sale? And if they can remember that far back, however long ago it was, then they can kind of give you some of that information. But one of the key things that I make sure to ask every single seller, whether they've sold a property or not, is if you could wave a magic wand and have this sale go just the way you want it, what would that look like? And that one's really, really important because they're literally going to tell you exactly how they want the sale to go. And you can make sure that you're playing to those strengths they're looking for. Um, and so once you walk through, then I kind of do a little review with them and say, "Okay, if you don't mind, may I ask," or you kind of review and you say, "Okay, so you're selling your home because you guys want to move to Iowa, Louisiana to be with your family. Is that correct? Um, and when you get there, do you know where you're going? Do you have a house there already? If not, then hey, would you like me to help you find a place there too?" Um, because you could also get a referral from that side. Um, and then I would ask them, "Okay, so you guys said you'd like to be there as soon as possible, but you'd really want to be there within about the next 45 days. Is that right?" "Okay, great." So this is typically where I would share with them a calendar. If you're doing an online presentation like we are now, you can click the present now and actually show them a calendar on your screen. And this is where I would show them and say, "Okay, have the blank calendar days lined out for," I usually have about 3 months worth of calendars printed out. Um, and you can find a blank calendar template on Excel or Google Docs, any kind of thing like that. I just have them ready to go. And so what I'll do is I'll go back 45 days on the calendar and then circle back. Okay, so this is when you want to be out of the property. Now, let me ask you this. With the person that buys this home, do you feel that they're going to be paying cash or they're going to be financing? Okay, financing. All right. Now, typically with lenders, they do require about 30 days to actually get the deal completely done because they're going to have to do appraisals. Of course, 99.9% of people are going to be doing an inspection. So if we circle that and say, okay, going back 30 days from there, that means we have 15 days of marketing to get your property under contract to get it sold by that 45-day time frame. Does that make sense so far? So they start to kind of realize that, oh, we actually have to do this fairly quickly if they want to be out in the next 45 days. And I also let them know that in this first week is when we're going to be getting all the marketing set up. That's when we're going to get the photographer in here. That's when we're going to get all the collateral pieces printed out and then get it live in the MLS and schedule all that information. And I also want to make sure that I'm going to ask them, do you have any other properties that you need to sell? This is one key thing that you want to keep in mind because I've met people before where they've had a handful of other properties that they did want to sell, but If I hadn't asked that, they might not have told me. And so you want to make sure that you're asking that to kind of get an idea of where they're going. And ask them about any inclusions or exclusions. Or you can even ask them about, so did you want to price your house with this carpet or with new carpet? And kind of tie back to when you're talking to them on the phone on making a property from a scale of 1 to 10. If they said, well, we'd say it's an 8, but it does need new carpet. So then I would ask them that. And I say, so do you want to price with this or with new carpet? And kind of make some of those qualifying questions. And then I'd go back to the package that I'd emailed or dropped off for them. When I'm going to say, okay, so I prepared a package of information for you, and I emailed it to you yesterday, or I delivered it to you yesterday. Have you had a chance to review it? If not, then briefly go through some of the information with them. If they have gone through it, then that's when I'll ask them, okay, well, do you have any questions regarding the package? Typically, if they've gone through it, they are going to have some questions. If not, then you can go through it, and then that's when they're going to start to ask some questions. But what I'm going to ask them is, based on the information in the package, do you feel that we are qualified to market your home? And they might say, well, yes, but, or if they say yes, then I would take it a step further and say, well, would you like me to handle that sale for you? And typically this is where commission objections come out. And they'll say, well, yes, but I need to know, how much you're going to charge me. And that's when, again, I'll say, okay, so you have a question about my success fee. Fair enough. Let me write that down. Are there any other questions that you have? Well, yeah, I want to know, obviously about pricing and how that looks. Okay, so you have a question about price. I'll write that down. And keep asking, is there anything else? Until you have all of the concerns out. And then you can repeat them back to them and say, okay, so you guys do feel that we are qualified to market your property, and you would like me to handle the sale for you, but you have a question about my success fee, and you have a question about pricing and the current market conditions, correct? Great. So at the end of this consultation, what you guys will know is one of 3 things is going to happen. Is after I've answered your questions, you may decide to hire me. Or 2, you may decide that I'm not the right fit for me, and you may choose not to hire me. Or 3, if I feel I can't help you achieve your objectives, I have a responsibility to tell you that and not take your listing. It wouldn't be right for me to take your listing knowing deep down inside that I can't help you. So shall we proceed and see where we are? Okay, great. So my mission is to help you get to Iowa, Louisiana on time. Would you like to see your odds? And this is where I'm going to share with them what's called the pond. Now with this, I'm going to go ahead and switch on my camera here, I think. Turn the light on. I'm going to go ahead and share this with you guys. Okay. So here we go. What I'm going to explain to them is that the real estate market is kind of like a pond, as you can see here. And we're going to have properties that come in and flow out, and then we'll have some properties that just don't make it and kind of hang out there. What I'm going to share with you guys right now is that in the area that we're looking at, where your neighborhood is in the past 90 days, there's been 18 new properties that have hit the market. In that same time period, there's actually 14 properties that are currently under contract. And also, in the past 90 days, there have been 20 properties that have sold. So you can see the properties as they hit the market, they're priced correctly, offers are made, and then they sell. But right here in the stagnant mass and continue to show, there's actually 30 properties that are currently available. Now, as you guys are presenting this, you can actually have it filled out already. So you don't have to try to use your trackpad to scribble along and make things look like a kindergartner wrote them. But I definitely want to share this with them to give them an idea of what's going on and what's happening in the market. Letting them know that, yeah, there are 18 new properties that hit the market. 14 of them were in this top area right here. They came in. They were the best value, the best price. They were shown the best. They had offers made, and then they flow right back out into the sold. What we don't want to be is down here is the stagnant mass. These are the properties that aren't in the best condition. They're not able to be shown easily. They're not necessarily the best price. They could be overpriced. And you can see that they're just sitting down here and they're not being considered. We definitely want to make sure that we're not in that area. All right, go back to here. Next, what I want to share with them is some market information. So let me pull up the graphs I've made. So what I did was I wanted to get some very broad and general information about that market. And so what I did was I did an MLS search for a specific area. And then I took all of the sales in that market and I exported it. So let me share with you what this graph looks like. There we go. So the first one that I wanted to share with them is the Seasonality Index. What this is showing is these red dots. These indicate sales, the number of sales in each month. So we can kind of look at this from, you can do actually more than 1 year. You could do multiple years to see if there is seasonality. But for the past 12 months, we can look at this and we can realize that, okay, so obviously sales are a little bit lower in the kind of in the late summer through early fall area. But you can actually see that there's a big spike in May. So we're actually coming up to a really good time to present this property to the market. Additionally, what I'm going to share with them is the square footage to sold price. So the price per square foot, basically. And the way that we have it laid out are all the square footages and all of the prices. And all of these dots represent a sale. So you can see how much they sold for and the average square footage. And this is going to be a pretty easy one for people to self-discover because they can actually look at it and say, okay, well, we're right at about 2,000 square feet. You draw that line straight up. Well, you can see where you're going to end up. So probably around the, we'll say $600,000 range. And once again, this is not necessarily a CMA. This is just kind of sharing with them some very high level general information so they can start to piece together what's going on and what's happening. And this next one is called the odds of selling. So this is where I'm going to explain to them the odds of selling their home in the next 30 days. So in that market area, there's been 74 properties that have sold in the past 12 months. So when we take this 74 and divide it by 12, the average sale rate is about 6.2 properties per month. Currently, there are 31 properties that are active on the market. Now, when we bring your property to market, it's going to be 32. So if we add that to there, taking into consideration, there's going to be 5.2 months worth of inventory that's currently available. Knowing that, your odds of selling in the next 30 days are about 19%. So I'll stop here for a second and ask anybody if they have questions so far. Yeah, Philip, what's your question? Okay. Maybe is your microphone on, or did you not have a question? Okay. Well, then we'll move on. I guess he doesn't have a question.
Sorry,
Oh, there
sorry.
you are, Philip. What's
Sorry.
your question?
Sorry about that. I was having all kind of technical issues. Okay. The pond seasonality index and the odds of selling. Is there an easy way to gather that and to attain that? Like, can you like send us a copy
Yes.
of that?
So there's two things you can do. You can do it my way, or you can do it the easy way.
Okay.
Uh, the easy way to do it is go to focusfirst.com, and they will actually do the whole thing for you based on your MLS information. But it does cost about $25 a month. But they're going to actually have all these different graphs that they can present for you, and they will create all of this. And obviously, you can see they have a lot more information than what I can do.
Okay. Wow.
If you want to do it the free route, which is the route that I took, um, let me flip my screen around. I'll do my entire screen and I'll share it with you guys.
Because I feel like the odds of selling, I feel like we could probably work that out. But the seasonality index and stuff, I mean, all of it, it'd just be great to know like what you do for.
Yeah. So let me see. I think we just had another question. When doing so Blake has a question about when showing the listings on the pond that I was just showing him. The time frame that I use is I'll do the listings for the last 90 days. I'll do what's currently under contract and what's sold in the last 90 days, and then what's available currently. So let me go to the matrix, and we will do, this is how you search for properties that are active for the last 90 days. So you can see that I did 0 to 90. Hold on, let me go see this question now. Thanks. Okay. And I'm going to focus on a specific area. So I'll zoom in to which market I'm presenting information for. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a line around that. So go from here to here to here to here to here to here. Land. So I can see in the past 90 days, there's been 18 new listings that came to the market. I can leave everything the same, and I can uncheck this and say, well, what is pending and what is under contract? I can see there that there's a total of 14 that are pending and under contract. And I'll take that off and I'll say, okay, well, what's sold in the past 90 days? So I'll back that number out and write 90. And you can see down here that there's 20 that have sold. So that's where you're going to get your general numbers. You can narrow it down more if you'd like by saying, okay, well, let's focus on just single family. As you could click that, you can see that it goes down to 16 matches. And you can also say, okay, well, let's change the condition of it. Really, you don't want to narrow it down too far, but you want to narrow it down enough to at least paint the picture of what's going on accurately in the market. Now, to get the other numbers that I was talking about, for how many properties have sold, what I did was 365. The properties that have sold in that market, you see there's 74. I'm going to click on the results. And I'm going to click this button right here that says all. And then down at the bottom, if you can see where my mouse is, I clicked export as an agent single line. and I'll export all of that information. What you'll see on sheet 1, this is how it comes out. So these are all 74 properties. So to create one of those graphs, what I'm going to do is on sold price, I'll take that column, and approximate square footage, I'll take this column, and then I click chart, and I go blam. And just like that, we have the square footages on the bottom and the prices up the side. You can make it a little bit bigger so people can see. Now, I'm on a Mac, so this is going to be different on a PC, but it's going to be close to some of the same information. So on here, what I want to do is I want to add a trend line, and I'm going to do a linear trend line. And you can see that it draws right across here. Now, with this, before presenting it to people, you want to look at these right here. Don't take these out, but you want to go back and say, okay, well, if I sort these based on, and actually I can go back to here and do it. So if we say sort by list price per square foot, I can look at these ones that are kind of the outliers and say, what do I need to know about this property that makes it so different than the other properties? And kind of see more information about it. You can see, it's 3,000 square feet. I want to see, okay, well, is there maybe a large lot that it's on? Is there off-street parking? Find out some of that information, because when you're presenting a graph like this to your clients, they're going to say, okay, well, yeah, I see everything selling right around that trend line, but my property is more like this one. And that's when you can say, okay, well, let's actually compare it. And you can pull that specific listing up and say, this is what's going on with that property. This is what's happening, and move forward from there. Let me get that. So I know that was a quick and dirty way of explaining how to do the graphs, but I hope that helped a little bit so you guys can see where I'm getting the information from. Let me go back to here. So did that help you at all, Philip? Or everybody else? Awesome, great. So what I'm going to do from there is I want to keep going along the route of talking to them about their property and what we're going to be doing to sell it. So from there, what I want to talk to them about is their comparable properties. So with the comparable properties, I'll have those ready to go and share with them. I'll go back to this chart that I had. So I'll present my entire screen. So on here, you can see where I did buyer's eyes. So I have their property outlined right here, and then I have the 3 other closely comparable properties that I've sold recently. And I'll share those properties with them on the screen. And we'll click through the photos and kind of talk about them a little bit. And we'll say, okay, so based on the photos, without being able to actually see the property, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being complete gut job and 10 being a brand new, perfect model home, how would we rate the condition of 1032 Constantinople? And we'll have them rate that by themselves. And we'll go through the entire thing and rate everything about each property. And we'll do this together and work it out. And then down here, we'll have the price, what it sold for. And we'll keep going through all of those, knowing that internally, I already know what the price is probably going to be. But what I'm trying to do is get them to kind of figure it out for themselves and see if they can kind of have a meeting of their own minds to get to the price that we're going to need. So I'll ask them based on current market conditions, where do you feel you should price your house to get you to Iowa, Louisiana on time? And that's when they're going to come up with the price based on all the information that I shared with them. A little bit different than what most people do. I know most people are going to say, well, here's the CMA. Let me go ahead and tell you this is where you need to be. What I'm doing is I'm presenting them with enough market data for them to be able to make an intelligent decision based on what I've shared. And I'll ask them, well, do you feel that that will get you there on time? And if not, what's your plan B? And kind of get an idea from there. If they say, well, you know what we really want to do is we want to make sure that we want to take the approach of pricing our property high, and then we can kind of work it down from there a little bit. So this is one of the graphs that I'll share with them. Right here. Can you guys see that? Can't see the graph. Here we go. So this is what I would show them. Overpricing in a depreciating market. And I have definitely seen this in the past because I've been in real estate for 15 years now. Is what'll happen is they'll put their price here a little over market, and then the market starts to continually go down. And what they'll do is drop it a little bit, and then drop it a little bit, and then drop it a little bit. And this is literally called chasing down the market. So if they would have actually just met the market where it was, they wouldn't have lost all of this value in all of this time. So this is one of the things that I use to kind of help describe that a little bit. So really, yeah, they could definitely do that. And I've seen it happen before where there was a property listed at $550,000. And over the course of a few years, they kept dropping the price. And it eventually sold for $225,000. So literally half. So you can see that obviously time on market is not always your friend. And so that's one of the things that I want to share with them. Okay. So let me get back to where I was.
Adam,
any questions so far? What's up?
Love that graph. Where is there a way we can get that graph?
Yeah, I can email it to you guys at the end of all this.
Yeah,
or you can just, yeah, I'll email it to you guys. That'll be easy enough.
Thank you.
So that's how I cover all that. And typically what I find is that as I'm going through the information, a lot of their questions start to go away. And the reason I'm not too concerned about the commission objection is because of that pre-listing packet. Most people, I would say about 80% of agents are not using a pre-listing packet. And that's one of the main things that helps me not only secure my spot, but make sure that I'm presenting more information and better information than any other agent that's going to go against me. And I already have my commission in there, so they can already see what it is. And really it's about providing value, because when you think about it, so the example that we were using was right around 600,000. So if we said, okay, well, that's a $600,000 property times 6% is what I charge as a success fee, that's $36,000. So essentially, as a listing agent, you're going into their property, and if you hadn't sent them a pre-listing packet already, you're basically a stranger coming in to present to them for an hour and ask them for $36,000. Now, if it were me, before I throw away that kind of money, I'm going to make sure that I've done a little bit of research first. So if you help them out ahead of time by providing them with a pre-listing packet through email or dropping it off, you've already done more than 80% of the agents out there. And as you do that, you'll start to realize that the objections become less and less. And presenting them those graphs and charts and figures and helping them get to the price that is going to sell their property, then that's once again presenting more information and for you as the expert before even having to deal with any of the commission objections. So from there, then you just move forward and say, great. Was there anything else you need to know before listing your property with us today? And if they don't have any questions, that's the time when you would overcome any of your objections. If they did still have an objection about your commission, or if they still had an objection about the price that you guys weren't able to overcome, then that's when you would decide if you guys are ready to move forward with the listing agreement or if you're ready to part ways. So we got about 8 minutes left. I will leave it open to you guys for any questions, comments, or concerns. And if you guys are on mute, you just hit the little red button with the microphone through it so you can talk.
Adam, that was a big aha for me, was the listing packet, because I'm certainly someone that doesn't bring a pre-listing packet. And I've been told in the past about bringing one and dropping one off before a listing presentation. But I think with seeing that you can do it in command and seeing that, the kind of value that you're talking about, and I think also saying, hey, a $36,000 check, just hand it to me. I'm a stranger. You're right. Like, it'd be so much better to do that. So that was a big aha.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be something I'm going to be working on for sure. Is that packet, and then going over my presentation with my script partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Oh, and Blake agrees with you. And putting together a pre-listing packet, really a lot of the information in there is going to be fairly static, but there is going to be some stuff in there that you're going to want to change based upon each property. And of course, with the listing agreement, you can do that in .loop, and you just click download, and you'll have it right there. And so I would just take all the information that you're going to need filled out anyway. I've actually done that to whereas I've showed up to the listing agreement or to the listing consultation, and they already had everything filled out. They said, well, we're not 100% sure on the price. So I walked around and we discussed it, got to a price, and that's the only blank we had to fill in. Everything else was signed and ready to go. So having that information sent over to them ahead of time definitely helps out. And so that way, when you present them a listing agreement, it's not the first time they've seen it. They've actually already had the information, and it helps them make an easier decision. What other questions do you guys have? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, then I will let you guys out of class 5 minutes early. And oh, does your Mac auto-generate those graphs is what Blake was asking. Yeah, when I just click, like I showed you guys before, when I just click on the columns, I click graph and it'll do it for me. Blake, you can give me a call later today and I can show you that. All right, well, you guys have fun, and I'll see you guys in about an hour for the buyer consultation. Enjoy.